At 6:42 local time, the waters north of Puerto La Cruz delivered a sharp reminder of who truly rules the sea. The Venezuelan patrol vessel Gishi, a 2,300-ton gray silhouette built for coastal defense, was moving through its routine dawn patrol at 14 knots. Radar was steady, sonar drifted through the calm Caribbean morning, and the bridge carried the familiar mix of diesel and stale coffee. The quiet rhythm sailors trust when everything feels under control. That calm didn't last. Sonar picked up a distortion. At first it was minor, then suddenly intense. A blue display flashed red. The operator went still. Displacement spike, bearing 086, rapid ascent. In simple terms, something massive was rising fast. 2 miles off the bow, the sea surface lifted as if a mountain had moved beneath it. A heartbeat later, steel burst through the water, throwing a 30-foot plume into the air. No distress signal, no radio call, just a dark hull, cold, clean, and purposeful. The Gishi's sensors lit up. Depth profiles flickered red with alarms. Every sailor inside the Combat Information Center recognized the shape immediately. A vertical sail, tapered hull, matte black surface absorbing the morning light like a shadow made real. No markings, no flag. But some silhouettes need no introduction. A Virginia-class U.S. Navy fast-attack submarine, nuclear-powered, and until 5 seconds earlier, completely unseen from the bridge. Captain Rojos didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. Track and log. That was enough. General quarters followed almost automatically. Doors sealed, crew moved to stations, and the ship's twin diesels climbed from steady power to a strained growl. Gishi turned to starboard, keeping an intercept angle while maintaining a cautious 1.9 nautical mile distance. At that range, even a seabird could have triggered radar attention. But this was no bird. This was precision-built machinery. From the surface, the American submarine looked almost unreal. Water streaming down its sail in thin lines, its hull catching the weak morning sun. Nothing about its movement felt accidental. No list, no drift, no wasted motion. Even the bubbles seemed deliberate. Whoever commanded that submarine had not surfaced here by mistake. Inside the Venezuelan Combat Information Center, data poured in. Bearing 086 steady. Closest point of approach, narrowing slowly. Radar range 1.9 nautical miles. Sonar return overwhelming. The technician had to reduce gain just to keep the screen readable. For 3 long minutes, even the ocean seemed to pause. No radio call came from the submarine. None was expected. Under emission control, the Americans were following their own script. Appear, remain visible, then disappear. A quiet display of presence. A message delivered without a word. In waters like these, navigation law is one thing. Capability is another. The Venezuelan patrol vessel was no relic. Its systems combined Italian-built sensors with doctrine shaped by Soviet influence, a blend of two traditions that rarely agreed on what defense should look like. Gishi patrolled what the Navy called the Bolivarian Security Zone. Officially, its mission was to protect maritime sovereignty. In practice, it was a small warship operating daily at the edge of a superpower's reach. At 6:44, the captain ordered visual confirmation. Through binoculars, the black form dominated the horizon. Sunlight caught details that should have remained invisible. No periscopes, no crew on deck, just the sail and part of the hull above the surface, still releasing trapped air. The submarine seemed to command the silence around it. Back on the Venezuelan bridge, the crew worked with controlled discipline. Cameras focused, timestamps were logged, every line of data was copied and saved. In gray zone waters, they understood the rule well. You do not fire first, you document first. Information is the opening move. At 6:45, the engine room reported full propulsion readiness. The patrol vessel held steady at 14 knots, coastline 19 nautical miles astern. Close enough to retreat toward, far enough to remain within a claim of neutrality. The captain's voice stayed even, though his eyes never left the submarine's sail. No one said what everyone already knew. That submarine had almost certainly recorded their acoustic signature long before anyone on Gishi saw it. It had not surfaced to be discovered. it had surfaced to be noticed. By 6:47, radar returns settled. The submarine remained still, perfectly aligned on bearing 086, as if inviting the next move. On Jishi's sonar display, the violent trace smoothed back into calm blue. The sea had gone back to pretending nothing had happened. The captain let out a slow breath. "Keep recording. No transmissions." The words sounded almost ceremonial. Outside, the water shimmered in deceptive peace, but every sailor on that bridge understood the meaning. When a U.S. submarine chooses to reveal itself, it is not an accident. It is a signal. Jishi continued its slow northern arc, wake cutting clean through still water. Somewhere below, the American reactor hummed, silent proof of power that required no explanation. The Caribbean returned to its morning calm, but in naval terms, calm is only data waiting to change. At 6:47 local time, the world narrowed to 2 vessels and a few miles of charged seawater. The Venezuelan patrol ship Jishi stayed on course at 14 knots. The American submarine, half submerged and silent, remained motionless, a black monolith ringed by foam. The rising sun struck its sail, turning the matte surface into something like a blade of light. No movement, no call signs, no navigation lights, just a nuclear-powered question hanging off Venezuela's northern edge. Inside Jishi's Combat Information Center, the air felt heavier. Screens buzzed softly, relays clicked, and every man waited for the first change in the pattern. A turn, a ping, anything. Then the sonar operator broke the silence. "Contact steady, depth 0, no propeller noise." In other words, the submarine was not adjusting position. It was holding exactly where it wanted to be. Captain Rojos gave the next order without emotion. "Maintain 15 knots, record bearing drift." This was no longer about maneuvering, it was about posture, showing awareness without escalating the moment. On the gyro compass, the bearing shifted slightly, from 086 to 084 degrees. The American submarine began to turn, so subtly it was almost impossible to notice. Just a degree at a time, slowly bringing its sail into alignment with the Venezuelan ship's bow. In naval terms, that kind of movement isn't random. It's controlled, deliberate, and impossible to misread. Captain Rojos didn't need anyone to explain it. When a warship points itself directly at you, it's not for sightseeing. It's a message. By 6:49, the closest point of approach had narrowed to 1.6 nautical miles. Radar confirmed there were no other U.S. surface vessels nearby. Strangely, that made the situation feel even heavier. One submarine, alone, visible by choice, like a marksman stepping into the open without fear. The Americans called it a presence operation. The Venezuelans had their own interpretation, a test of limits. Out on deck, a few sailors stood along the starboard rail, binoculars fixed on the horizon. Technically, they weren't supposed to linger like that, but even experienced crews weren't used to seeing a U.S. submarine this close, this exposed. Its shape looked almost unreal, smooth, seamless, with no visible weld lines. The hull seemed to absorb the sunlight, as if it preferred not to be noticed, even while commanding attention. Below deck, inside the sonar room, the displays flickered. Then a sharp, unmistakable sound cut through the space. A single ping. Clear, focused, powerful enough to vibrate through the bulkheads. Active sonar from the submarine. Not aggressive, but intentional, like someone clearing their throat before speaking. The room went silent. "Sir, they've pinged us." Rojos didn't react outwardly. "Copy. Maintain course. Keep recording." It wasn't an attack. It was something else entirely. A statement. A confirmation. They weren't estimating anymore. They were measuring hull density, echo patterns, signal decay. The kind of data that holds immense value in naval intelligence. At 6:50, the captain gave a new order. "Bring us to a parallel course. Maintain 2 nautical miles offset." The helm responded immediately, shifting the ship onto a track just off the submarine's side. A textbook move, non-threatening, but firm enough to show they wouldn't simply drift away. From the bridge, the submarine remained fixed in place, dominating the horizon. It hadn't moved, not even slightly. The water around it looked unusually still, as if the sea itself was waiting. Both sides were recording everything. The Americans captured radar frequencies, power outputs, communication patterns. The Venezuelans documented hull angles, reflections, wake behavior. In modern naval encounters, the first phase isn't about weapons. It's about information. By 6:52, the distance tightened again, 1.3 nautical miles. On deck, the .50 caliber crews took their positions. Barrels angled upward, inactive but visible. Their purpose wasn't to engage, it was to be seen, ready if needed. Visibility had become its own form of communication. Inside the CIC, voices dropped to near whispers. Another sonar pulse came, softer this time, then faded into the background noise of the sea. The radar image stayed steady. No dive, no propulsion signature. The submarine was waiting. "They're testing us," the captain said quietly, more to the log than anyone else. "Seeing how close we're willing to stay." No one argued. The two vessels now held position in a silent standoff, separated by barely more than a mile of open water and decades of technological imbalance. A single wrong adjustment, an overly aggressive scan, and the situation could shift in ways neither side wanted. At 6:55, the Venezuelan camera zoomed tightly onto the submarine's hull. Subtle surface details shimmered, pressure vents releasing small pockets of air. Nothing unusual, just controlled, precise operation. By 6:57, nothing had changed. And that, in itself, was the escalation. Silence in moments like this carries more weight than noise. The bridge log captured it simply. Closest point of approach, 1.2 nautical miles. U.S. submarine stationary, visual contact steady, no hostile action. Tension elevated, no movement, no withdrawal, no hesitation. At that point, the encounter had evolved into something only professionals fully understand. Two crews, representing two nations, aware that every movement, every second, was being observed far beyond the horizon. Jishi held steady at 15 knots, course 084. The submarine hadn't shifted in over 15 minutes. It remained half submerged, sail facing the Venezuelan vessel like a blade held perfectly still. Then at 6:58, something changed. A slight roll to port, barely 10 degrees, but enough to shift the atmosphere instantly. Contact bearing changing. 086 to 083. They're aligning on us. It wasn't a lock. It was positioning. The kind that comes before either acknowledgement or warning. Rojos responded immediately. "Parallel course, port 5 degrees, maintain 2-mile offset." The helm adjusted. This wasn't escalation, it was presence. The maritime equivalent of holding steady eye contact. The Venezuelan vessel shifted slightly across the submarine's side, cutting through the calm water. For 90 seconds, neither side said a word. Radios stayed silent. Only the steady vibration of engines filled the bridge. Then, just as subtly as before, the submarine adjusted again, back toward bearing 084. And stopped. Stillness returned. The Venezuelan crew recognized the pattern. They had seen it during international exercises, controlled micro-movements designed to observe reactions. The captain remained steady. He didn't respond to it. At 6:59, a faint release of air rose from the submarine's sail. To an untrained eye, it meant nothing. To those who understood, it signaled something else. Descent. "She's going under," the sonar operator said quietly. Within seconds, the change became visible. Bubbles spread outward as the massive hull began to slip beneath the surface. No signal, no message, just motion. The ocean closed over it, foam, then calm. By the next radar sweep, it was gone. 7 o'clock. Sonar returned to flat blue. The contact faded after just a few cycles. The sea had taken it back without a trace. On the bridge of Jishi, silence stretched longer than before. Every sailor looked at the same empty stretch of water, unsure whether to feel relief or something else. The captain spoke first. "Mark final coordinates. Save all logs." His tone remained controlled, but the weight behind it was clear. Inside the CIC, data was already being secured. Sonar recordings, radar logs, every detail preserved for later analysis in Caracas. Not for retaliation, for understanding. Because in encounters like this, not knowing is the real risk. Far below the surface, the American submarine continued its quiet departure. Its sensors confirmed the Venezuelan ship had not followed. Mission complete. No incident. Response time recorded. Data transmitted. For the Americans, the event was already archived. For the Venezuelans, it would stay with them much longer. This wasn't just another contact on a screen. It was a quiet reminder that their patrol routes were being tracked in real time, that their defensive line existed more as an idea than a true barrier. The submarine hadn't surfaced to scare anyone. It surfaced to make a point. Later that morning, during the debrief, the officers would describe it in neutral, controlled language. Unidentified U.S. Navy submarine surfaced 1.8 nautical miles from patrol line. No hostile action observed. Intent, probable surveillance. Clear, precise, and completely stripped of what the crew had actually felt when that dark hull broke through the morning sea. By 7:03, the tension began to ease. Adrenaline faded, coffee cups returned to consoles, engines settled back down. The patrol continued as if nothing unusual had taken place. But no one on board truly believed that. Encounters like this don't really end. They stay with you. For the U.S. Navy, this was standard doctrine in motion. Forward presence, carefully timed and executed to shape the environment and signal control without escalation. For Venezuela, it was something else entirely. A clear indication that their systems only detected what others allowed them to detect. Between the two sides wasn't a visible border, but something far more subtle. A line defined by confidence, restraint, and awareness. At 7:05, the final entry went into the ship's log. Incident concluded. U.S. submarine submerged. Last known position, 10 degrees 17 minutes north, 64 degrees 32 minutes west. Sea state calm, morale steady, and just like that, it was over. No announcements, no headlines. Just another silent encounter between two navies, both fluent in a language where presence speaks louder than words. Because at sea, the strongest message is often the one that never needs to be said out loud.